what's up, guys? How you doing? Welcome to another edition of Straight Talk, and this is Straight Talk 23. I'm gonna go ahead and update the stream's information here, but we have Lupiter here with us today, and we're gonna be talking about HR Karens and the Wall of Doom. So, say hello to everybody there, Lupiter.
Yo, 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 yo. What's up, my fellow Karens, men, women, fellow humans, and other category people? We also value you, and we get paid twice as much for the other people category as part of the new Rumble initiative to boost DEI.
Yeah, so I mean, the reality is that like the title of the thing is it's kind of a metaphor. It's kind of like a dual purpose metaphor, because like people know about the women in the wall, right? And that when they hit a certain age, like it's called the wall, where like men are no longer the sexual market value, that they don't have the sexual market value as in their 20s. And it's the same HR women that are like manless and like cat ladies. They typically work at HR and they do this voodoo type hiring practices, and they literally have a wall that they put up for men in their DEI, woke, established HR, department. And so they have a wall for us, right, for men, but like, when they hit 40, that wall, or even 30 for that matter, they hit a wall as well. So we hit the wall early, they hit the wall later. And, it is what it is. So anything you want to add to that, Lupiter?
Yeah, I just want to say it's kind of like, if you've ever been like going out with some females or something like this, and I don't know if it's like a new phenomena or it's like a phenomenon that's always existed. But what I've noticed is that if a female's interested in you, uh, it starts to get very weird very quickly, and before you know it, you're in like a job interview. Like that's what it feels like to me. And she's asking you all these questions, and it's like, you know, it's like one of these scenes out of a movie where you've been kidnapped. It's a spy movie. You've been kidnapped by the Russians or the Chinese. They're tying you down to the chair, and now they're interrogating you and they're asking you for all of the information. They're asking you about everything. And that's what women do when they like you or they want to express interest in you. They start to interrogate you, and it sounds exactly like a job interview. And I don't think that that's unrelated. I think that's very strongly linked, because when you look at it, women, they control the sexual marketplace to an extent, and they're like gatekeepers in the sexual marketplace. But nowadays, if you're a man, like it used to be, if you're a man and you want to go out, you want to do something, you just go out, you do it, right? You don't need, certification, you don't need billions of dollars, you don't need all this, like, other people to do stuff. It's, now we have, a developed economy. It's a sophisticated marketplace. I can't just go out and do something. If I'm like an automobile like engineer or something, I need to like work with like 5,000 other. So you're kind of tied down. You're kind of forced into the system. And so now you want to go out and work. You've got to get certifications. You've got to government licenses. You've got to have all the shit. And you want to go out and work. And instead of just going out and speaking to other men that are working, and you're like, hey, you're doing cool stuff, you're making cars, whatever, like, can I come make cars with you, whatever, however it works, now you're going to go and you've got to like go through this process, and you're basically going to be interrogated by a bunch of women, who decide whether or not they think you're hot, or they would personally go out in a relationship with you. And then based on how much they want a relationship with you, then maybe you get the job, and that's kind of how it works in my experience.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is I don't know. Looking at the my career, dealing with HR and whatnot, in the United States, when you first start working like entry level, like at like fast food or something like that, it's rare that you actually deal with an HR. And if you're dealing with HR, it's usually like offsite, and you're basically the hiring manager will just deal with HR directly for you. But when you actually get to the professional level, as Looper and I, we're college educated, so and when we're looking for jobs, like it's literally like it's like fishing for a relationship, and like you go into this interview and blindly, and hopefully you dress smart, and like you do the research on the company, and everything's answered right, and you're hopefully you do everything that they all the things you touch all the sixes for them, and the answers are right, and then they do this voodoo stuff. But the reality is that the HR department, these Karens, they only want to hire people that are like-minded. And when you look at a manless, childless, cat lady, dog lady, HR woman, in her late 20s, mid to late 20s, 30s, and all the way into 40s and 50s, it's they're hiring basically betas, people that are like very passive, and like not gonna rock the boat, and that won't get them, won't ruffle feathers. The alphas, they generally will only hire if they're forced to hire by a hiring manager or somebody like that needs them as a headhunter. And generally, a lot of times your alphas tend to be subcontracted as a 1099 subcontractor. They don't usually work. They're not usually a wage slave, as they call it, or as Aaron Clary calls it. They generally own their private company, and they work for themselves. So that's what I've noticed in my fields that I've worked in. What about you, Lupiter?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some experiences where what I can say is that yeah, I mean, a lot of these HR people, they are like that, but I've also had other experiences where it's the other way around. Like, so I've had like interviews and stuff with some HR people, maybe 40s, 50s, that sort of thing. And you're like, oh, yes, this person, you can tell they've done this before. They've interviewed a lot of people. They're very comfortable. They've got a bunch of dumb questions. Like, everyone knows they're dumb. I know they're dumb. The HR person knows they're dumb. We're going to go through these questions. I'm going to say a bunch of like random crap to them. And then, depending on how I do in the interview, then they're just going to advance me. And I've had some experiences like that. And then I've shown up. And what I've noticed is that, see, one of the reasons why it's so difficult to get a job in the current market is because, previously, as I said, I mean, you just speak to someone and they'll just give you a job. You'd give them a handshake, they'll give you a job, and then you had to start applying and things like that. But it used to be that you would just need to kind of convince one person. So you convince one person that they want to work with you, and then they hire you. Nowadays, you apply for a job. There's a huge number of applicants. You go through, pre-screening with an HR person, and then there's several different rounds of screening. There's several different rounds of interviews. Nowadays, they want to do a phone interview. They want to do like an HR interview, a phone interview, an in-person interview. Then they want to do like another 2 interviews or something like that. And then, so you're going to go through multiple people that then you have to go through, and they have to get it signed off. So, if it's easy to get, like, it's one thing to get one person to like you. It's another thing to get 5 people in a row to like you. And that's the thing that I've noticed. But I've also noticed that, like, because I went to an interview, and this is something that I strongly remember, because this was around the time of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, right? And I remember listening to Putin, and I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I sort of skimmed through it. I saw clips, and Putin spoke for like 2 hours, 4 hours, something like that. He had like one A4 piece of paper with notes on. You know what I mean? He was speaking for hours and hours and hours and hours, and it was a very structured, very rehearsed. But he was able to do that. And I went in, and there was this person, and it was this example, as I said, where you know she was given a list of people by HR to interview, and you could tell she wasn't interested in me. She didn't shake my hand. She didn't say her. She didn't say my name when I went to, and so on and so forth. I get there, and she has a piece of paper, right? So this is like a 30-something-year-old cat lady. So I don't think it's necessarily just the HR people. I think it's women in general in the hiring process. But she had like a list of like 8 questions. So who the hell has a list to ask like 4 questions, 5 questions, 8 questions? But this is what you have to go through. So I'm being rejected or judged either way by a person who has to have a list to ask 4 or 5 or 8 questions, and they're the same questions they ask everyone. And she's literally writing this stuff down. Like, this is the state of things in like 2020, 2022.
What about group interviews? Have you done group interviews before? I remember like in I've
Yeah.
done group interviews and like PwC I think does them, and a lot of sales jobs, a lot of like customer service oriented jobs. They'll do group interviews, and it's like it doesn't make any sense to me like group interview. But I guess if you're dealing with project management things of that nature, then it's necessary.
I mean, I understand, if you're a manager and you want to do a group interview, you want to bring your team on, and everyone's going to work with the person. So if this is, if the criteria is, do I want to work with this person? Do I think this person's cool? Then yeah, getting other people into that is that's something you can do. And what I want to add is I want to add that this isn't like a Western cultural standard or Western cultural practice. But if you're in East Asia, particularly Japan or Korea, and you have a meeting and you show up by yourself or with one other person, people are going to think very poorly of you because they're going to think that this person's not important. Because if you're an important person, you would have like sidekicks, goons, minions, people that follow you around, people that are underneath you. It's a cultural thing. So you know this is, I guess, just the difference between the East and the West. But from my perspective, I mean, I've been part of meetings and things like that before, and what I can say is because I've been on both ends. Uh, Often you want to have a second person at the meeting because you get a second set of insights. And if someone's not participating too much in the meeting, then they're in a mode where they're observing. You see what I'm saying? As opposed to a mode where they're presenting or a mode where they're doing a combination. And so that can be very valuable because later on you're going to have a discussion about these candidates, and you're going to bounce ideas off that person. So this can help you make better hiring decisions. But from my experience, when I've been with panel interviews with people, I've had panel interviews, and there's been women on the panel interviews, and the woman will just say a bunch of dumb stuff that doesn't make any sense. Like they'll use buzzwords, and like I had an instance where she used the buzzword, and I was very articulate in my response, and I was asking her uh, to clarify what it was she was trying to communicate, expressing that I went to a different university than her, and I have a different work experience from her. So if this is something that's a particular buzzword that is used at one of her previous employers or at her university, that I've not, I'm not familiar with it. But if she wants to explain what the buzzword, what the word means, and what she's asking, then I'm happy to comment and answer the question, or any other technical question she has. And she's just not able to, she's not able to respond. They're not able to say anything, and that's what I've noticed. I've noticed that when you have panels, whether it's a job panel or it's a TV news panel, that's a very popular format in a lot of countries now. The women are there, kind of not to say anything intelligent. That's what I've noticed. They're not really contributing to the conversation.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I mean, the thing is they broke down. There was a video I found on here from an influencer, Damon Cassidy. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it. It's about 18 minutes. I don't know. We could go through it if you want. He kind of he gives the data points and breaks everything down as far as why entry level jobs demand years of experience, because that's the biggest concern right now, especially with the Zoomers. I know a lot of X gens, younger X gens, and millennials. We had to deal with that, where they would tell us, "Oh, it's great you have a college degree, but you have no experience." It's like, well,
Well, let's
how do you
let's
experience?
go over our thoughts first, and then we can see what his thoughts are, and then we can comment on
Okay,
what he's saying.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's interesting. Like I said, with the entry level stuff, especially like even people that are experienced, because like I know the X gens were the first generation that they started doing this with. The Boomers started like pressuring to get more education to get advancement in the company, and they would go back to school, get a master's degree, just so that they can get a pay increase or like a promotion. And it got to the point where they were basically the first ones laid off because they were costing the company too much money because they were overeducated and overskilled. And or they if there was a downturn in the economy like in the '08 recession, they were laid off because of the also the cost, and they were having difficulty finding work because they were overqualified. and even the entry level positions they wouldn't take them because they were just way too overqualified and they didn't want to pay them what they were worth. That was the big thing during the '08 recession.
So here's my take. My take is, and this is from my personal experience in professional services and things like that. Um, there's something I think people don't understand. There's a few things people don't understand about the job adverts, beyond the fact that, they're all fake and things like this. I think one of the things that people are missing out on is when you see a job advert, it's like, I don't know, junior software engineer, assistant accountant, intermediate architect, whatever it is. Um, at the end of the day, these are just job titles, okay? But this isn't for what you're doing at the workplace. This is just something they need to put a job title on, because you can't advertise without a job title. So the job titles are fake, and what the job titles actually refer to is not what you're going to be doing. Okay, because I have my father, for instance, he worked at a company and they had a company policy. You don't get to have assistants, right? If you're a manager, you don't get to have secretaries, assistants, things like that. So what do you do if you're in a situation like this? You can't do it. Do you just not have an assistant? No. What you do is you create a job and you say, okay, I need someone to do this, and then you advertise for that, but they're actually an assistant. You see what I'm saying? So the job title often has no bearing even on what you're doing. Even you could be doing something completely different. But what the job title refers to is the job title refers to the pay. So when they say junior software engineer, they're not saying we need a junior software engineer, because if you have 3 years of experience, you're not junior, right? You're intermediate. That's how it works. So what they're saying is we're going to pay you like a junior software engineer. Yeah. In fact, maybe we're going to pay you at the bottom of a junior software engineer. But what we're looking for is we're looking for an intermediate software engineer with 3 years of experience. Because you know what? If you're an intermediate software engineer with 3 years of experience, then you're not an intermediate software engineer anymore. You can actually step up and be a senior software engineer. So they're looking for a senior software engineer and they want to pay, you see, so level 3, level 1, junior, level 2, intermediate, level 3, senior. They're advertising for a level 1 position with 3 years of experience at level 2. So they're trying to get a senior level software engineer for the price of an intern. This is what they're doing. So these so-called entry-level jobs, mostly they're not entry-level jobs. Second thing, if it is an entry-level job, no one is pricing high enough to actually pay people to take time off to train you. Okay, if everyone is working 80%, you're not making money. The company's not making money. That's the other side of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it all comes down to the bottom line. I mean, the main thing is like you're seeing even today, you're seeing a lot of boomers that are basically working past their prime into their late set like 70s. Like you look at like the current administration right now in the government, and you have the Senate, the U.S. Senate. I'm talking about America wise, in the U.S. Senate, and then you look at Biden and you look at Trump. They're all like in their 70s, late 60s. And I know that's partially because leadership people perceive that older, more mature people tend to be better leaders or perceived to be better leaders, so to speak. But the reality is that when you look at other countries, developing countries that are their GDP is skyrocketing, like Republic of Georgia, the average age is like in the late 30s, 40s, even like younger 50s at the most. And these economies are booming. There's a lot of investment. There's a lot of growth in these type of countries. Whereas you have these post-industrialized countries like in the West, like I said, the United States, where like the demographic of the leadership is basically past its prime. They should be retired. I mean, there's people literally dying, you know, in the workplace, like because they're taking days off, and they basically are working until they die, so to speak. They're not able to retire, or they're not wanting to retire because they don't want to lower their standard of living. And this whole time you have these bloated and inflated salaries that you're paying these boomers, and even the older X gens for that matter. And are they really contributing especially in the digital age, with AI and, other types of technical fields, are they really pulling their weight, Because obviously in the digital age, the younger generations, like the millennials and the Zoomers, have a better grasp of the new digital climate. I mean, I remember a lot of the positions I was working in just in the last like 5 years, even 10 years, they're still using paper form filling. And it's like, why are we still doing paper form filling? Like, this is a waste of a waste of resources, and b it has to be digitalized. So it's like this is retarded. Like, this makes no sense. But it's because some boomer doesn't want to learn how to use the software. They don't want to learn how to use a computer. They want you to give them a hard digital or a hard copy instead of digital.
My experience over here is like, what even is an entry level job, right? Like, let's say you want to work in retail. Well, historically, I mean, I remember growing up, my local supermarket, they had a store, like a special facility in the local supermarket that was equipped with all sorts of tools and machinery. And what they would do is they would maintain all of the shopping trolleys. And this would be like a handyman that like works at for the supermarket, and he maintains all of their trolleys. He maintains all of like if there's some odd job that needs to be done, he's kind of like a groundskeeper at a school. And that job's gone now. And it's like, so now if something's broken, you need to fix it. Like a random employee needs to fix it. The random employee, like, it used to be you would have someone and they would do the stock take. You know what I mean? You would have special people to do, like, even I remember growing up at McDonald's, they used to have one person, this person's trained to operate this machine. This other person, he's trained to operate this other machine. You see what I'm saying? Each
Yeah.
person, they're trained like a factory line to only do one part of the puzzle. Nowadays, if you go into any business, like even a retail business, even McDonald's, they don't let you work at McDonald's on the floor until you're certified to handle every single machine. You have to go to like McDonald's University. You have to like spend like 4 weeks training before they let you work at McDonald's.
Interesting.
So what even is an entry level position? Like, do entry level positions exist anymore? Because like, this is crazy, right? Like, I mean, I've seen people at the supermarkets and they have computers with POS systems and things, and then they have to go around and it's the click and collect thing. They have to like click all the buttons on the screen. They get told what to pick. They've got like a microphone in the ear. They have to do like all the things, discount the items, check for expiry date, scan, do stock takes, do everything. There's no longer even in these places entry level positions. And let's say you're some sort of machinist, or you're wanting to get into machining or something like that. What's an entry level position when everyone's operating CNC machines? Like everyone's a CNC programmer. Like, what the entry level machine, the entry level process is being a CNC operator. I mean, there's a huge threshold to get to that point. What's the entry level in software? Like, being able to do anything in software engineering is highly complicated. So, a lot of these entry level positions don't even exist.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, nothing. It's all hybrid stuff. It's none of it is literally entry level. It all requires some type of training. And the thing is too is like they literally, boomers don't want to pay for training. In the previous, the previous generations, like after the World War II, they developed training programs to train people, for positions. Basically they created the GI Bill so that people can go to technical schools, they can go to college, so they can get the training, and that was paid for. And it went from that to the boomers who didn't really have much training. They got their training on the job. There was a lot of unionization, and now it's like the boomers expect people to pay for their own training, even for skilled jobs like tradesmen. Like, generally you would work as an apprentice, and then they would help get your certifications, they would help you get trained, and then so that you would be a viable employee. But now it's like, no, we want a certified person already, and it's like, well, so you have to take somebody else's, personnel, so you're sniping people to come to your
Right.
company.
Well,
What's the
not
point?
only that, but rather than going out and saying, well, I want to be an electrical engineer, I want to be a mechanic, I want to be a builder, I want to be a drain layer, whatever it is. And then you're going out and you're trying to find someone that will take you on as an apprentice. What you have to do is you have to go to trade school. You have to load up on debt. Maybe in some areas there's guaranteed jobs if it's like a union program or something like that. But where I live, where a lot of people live, you're going to university, you're paying to do a course. It's like an 8-week course or something like that to get like pre-trade qualified. Maybe in some cases it's like a year or two, and then you do like your year course, and then, it's up to you. If you find someone that's going to take you on as an apprentice, then, you've got someone to take you on as an apprentice. If you don't find someone to take you on as an apprentice, then you've just wasted 8 weeks or 2 years of your life, or a year of your life. And you've also gone into debt. You've not made any money. You've had to pay for the course, and you've just gone and screwed yourself. Whereas previously, you want to go and do these things, as I said, you just go down to the union, you go down to the government. Like in my country, we had the railway, we had all these different systems, and everyone, they complain. They say, okay, look, they're losing money. Okay, maybe they are losing money. But how much money does the university lose? Because the alternative to training people, and using some of these state-owned enterprises to train people, using some of these union jobs to train people. And I agree, the union jobs were overinflated in price. But why are they overinflated? Because they've got a whole bunch of people that they're training. So, is it actually more cost effective to train people on the job at like the National Railway Corporation or some union job? Or is it like more cost effective to get everyone to go and speculate that maybe they can get a job and then go to trade school and like have, a huge, like multi-$100 billion like education industry in America?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's listen to this person and what he has to say about why people can't get jobs and entry level jobs.
All right, hold on a second. Oh crap, that's not good. Yeah, give me a few seconds. Hold on a second.
Roughly 38. According to a study of over 3.8 million jobs on LinkedIn, roughly 38.4% of entry-level jobs required 3 to 5 years of experience, with industries such as manufacturing and software services demanding well over 50%. I want to address the many reasons why the entry-level job is being plagued with unrealistic expectations. To properly represent the complexities of the entry-level job, a once straightforward role, we'll be using the state-of-the-art Scooby-Doo sandwich. Beginning with, everyone needs to start somewhere, just not with us. From the end of World War II and leading up to the 80s, corporations filled roughly 90% of their vacancies through promotions and lateral assignments, causing a substantial emphasis on the entry-level position. The goal was to hire someone with good manners and a determination to work hard, as the company could then provide the potential candidate with a career trajectory, the necessary training to allow that to happen, and a fruitful pension plan as a way of rewarding company loyalty. While this representation of the entry-level job is what most candidates strive to find today, unfortunately the events that followed the 70s largely shaped what entry-level means today. The 80s and 90s began a relentless pursuit for efficiency in an attempt to improve the bottom line. Many American jobs were being replaced with the increase in globalization, as automation and outsourcing were the prioritized method of delegating most roles. Along with this shift, companies found it was more cost-effective to recruit skill sets rather than train them, as only 24% of current vacancies are now filled with internal candidates, a 66% decrease in just the last 50 years, with only 28% of talent acquisition leaders reporting that internal candidates are an important source to fill vacancies. As companies really began to prioritize recruiting skill sets instead of training skill sets, it brings us to our first issue that candidates as well as employers are facing. You need skills to get a job that'll teach you skills that requires a piece of paper when you should have been getting skills.
Hello, you've reached the house of unrecognized talent. Please start after the...
With the shift of planning for attrition rather than training for retention,
I want to comment on this.
companies have really begun to paint themselves into a corner, leaving a nation...
Yeah, go ahead.
I think a lot of what this comes down to as well is it comes down to Generation X people, it comes down to boomers, and it comes down to the way that they've structured the economy. So They had this whole idea where, they want to have, this is like proto DEI or like early DEI, early wokeness, where they want to incorporate everyone they can into the economy. So previously, it used to be like most people, they were doing sort of very menial jobs, right? A lot of people were just like poor people living on a farm. And people wanted to incorporate everyone. They wanted to incorporate women. They wanted to incorporate dumb people. They wanted to incorporate poor people. They even want to incorporate people from countries where they have IQs that are like 50% of the average in America, right? So the more and more people you start to incorporate, the more and more you need to break things down, the more and more you need to dumb things down. And you need to have a system of management to oversee that. And also, we had the rise of these big corporations which need lots of managers. So then we have the rise of managerialism. And the problem with these managers is these managers are people managers. They're not technical professionals, right? So, whether you're in accounting, whether you're in engineering, architecture, whatever it is, software engineering, automobile manufacturing, you're designing and building spaceships, weapons, submarines, whatever it is. You're going to have a manager. That manager is probably a people manager. They might not even know or have a degree or have any training or professional work experience in the industry that you're in. So your manager doesn't know how to do anything. So the problem is, how are you going to train people? How's the manager going to train people when the manager doesn't know? He doesn't know anything about the subject. He just knows how to manage people. You see what I'm saying? This is the problem. Whereas if you were to go back, like to the 1900s, the 1800s, you would get someone, they start out as a newsboy, right? Delivering newspapers on the train, and they retire at 80 as a train engineer, as a train mechanic. You see what I'm saying? So that guy has worked from the bottom all the way up to the top. Now, some people might start midway up or something, depending on their socioeconomic status, but you still have the director of trains or something, some sort of high-level manager at the train corporation or something, and he has experience working on trains, as like a mid-level person, as a mechanic, an engineer, whatever, right? So these people are technically qualified. Nowadays, people are qualified not by experience, not by profession, not by technical experience or technical capability. They're qualified because of who they know, because of the connections they have, because of the university degrees they have, the certifications. So the person that runs Microsoft, probably before they were CEO of Microsoft, they were CEO of a company that makes like bottle caps, and things like this. And all of the directors of that company, all the managers for 5 levels down, even the people managing the engineers and stuff, these people are people managers. None of the people running these organizations has any experience with whatever it is the company's doing. And that's why no one can train anyone.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reality. A lot of it's the fact that the boomers have pretty much cut training and budgeting. I think he does disclose it in here as well later on. Um, the fact that the cost of training, they took money from the training to pay to recruit. Like I was talking about earlier, where they're basically sniping people from other employers. So it's like, yeah, you literally pay for your own training, your own education, and they used to do pay incentives. So like a lot of I know people that worked at banks, for instance. They get the company, like the bank would pay for them to get an MBA in finance. It's because it would help make their job more efficient, and it would help them become a more efficient employee. So they would pay for their courses or a percentage of the courses to offset their costs for training. And now a lot of companies don't even do that anymore. They've cut a lot of that out. So now it's like you basically got to invest money in order to make more money, and there's no guarantee that you're going to make more money.
Let me break this down. So let's say you're a construction employer. How does this work? Let's say I show up and I have no experience. Who is training me? How is this working? I show up, I'm a laborer. I'm probably underneath someone, right? Who am I underneath? I'm underneath the assistant, probably, maybe the assistant builder, maybe a junior apprentice, because I'm a laborer. I don't know anything. I'm underneath someone, right?
Yeah.
The person I'm underneath, they know more about building than me, right? Not less, but more. the person above them. So let's say I'm underneath the assistant builder or the lowest level of apprentice. That apprentice might be underneath another apprentice. You see what I'm saying? Or he's underneath a junior builder, you see? And then that junior builder, who's he underneath? He's underneath another builder. You see what I'm saying? He's underneath someone that has more experience than him. And who's that person underneath? Maybe there's a project manager. Maybe there's a pricing manager that manages, that prices everything up. That person's a builder with like 20, 40 years of experience. You see what I'm saying? So this is how apprenticeships works. This is how it used to work. Now, let's say I show up as a software engineer or some other sort of thing. I show up and I go and work at General Motors. Who am I underneath? I'm underneath a team manager. What does the team manager know? Nothing. The team manager, previously, he was a manager at Walmart. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
He led 4 people at Walmart. Now he leads 4 people or 6 people or 10 people at General Motors. But I'm an engineer. So what? So how is he gonna? He's not gonna be able to tell me anything. If I go to a building site, then the builder, the apprentice builder, the more experienced laborer, he's gonna show me. He's gonna show me on the job. So the cost of training is very low because they're already providing the training to you. They're already paying that person. You see what I'm saying? Now,
yeah, of course,
they want to train me. I'm working at GM. I have to go and take courses. They have to pay for my time to take the courses, or I have to take courses outside of the work. They have to bring in people. They have to hire someone to train me because, so this is the problem. This is why we're in this situation, because if the person at General Motors was another engineer, he could just train me. I would be underneath a junior engineer or an assistant engineer who would be underneath an engineer that's more qualified, who would be underneath another engineer. But today, everyone's underneath someone that's like a DEI candidate that got the job that previously worked at McDonald's.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, it's like literally the entry levels are starting in the fast food industry, as they do usually. Like that's, teenagers would start, working flipping burgers, and then they would learn how to work in a team. They know how to deal with some small responsibilities, and then they would work their way up while they're going through college. That's how the X-Gens made it through to their positions, even the older millennials. But now, like the Zoomers and the predominantly Zoomers, like I said, younger millennials, they don't have the opportunities that the X-Gens and the even the Boomers for that matter had, where they could go and get an entry level position at like a fast food restaurant. Because even at the fast food restaurant, they're asking for previous experience. They don't want to hire you unless you have previous fast food experience. And it's like, this is an entry level job. Like, dude, like you guys flip burgers. Like, how difficult is that? You take garbage out. You mop floors.
And this goes back to what we're saying about the sexual marketplace, what we're saying about women as gatekeepers of the sexual marketplace, women as gatekeepers of who gets to get a job in these industries and things like that. Like even let's say I am applying for a job where I'm going to be underneath someone who knows more than I do, which is how it should be, right? You shouldn't be underneath someone that knows less than you. That doesn't make any sense. You should put the person that knows more in charge of the person that knows less, and then it's going to work better that way, right? So even if I'm in that situation, chances are, if it's a big enough organization, like if it's just one builder who needs an assistant, he's just going to put an ad out somewhere, maybe word of mouth, whatever. I'm going to ring up, it's going to go to his number, he's going to make the decision. You see what I'm saying? If it's a big company, they have like 10 builders or 5 builders or something like that, they're going to have a female that's a receptionist, that's someone. I'm going to put my name through to her, and then she's going to decide. What does she know about building? She doesn't know anything about building. So this is what we're saying. These positions, they're gate-kept. And then eventually, if you're lucky, you get an interview with the manager. But as I'm saying, I mean, these managers, they used to work at McDonald's. They used to work as a salesman, something like this, right? So you go, you get a degree, you become an engineer, you become an architect, you become whatever it is. You become a lawyer, something like this. You go out, you go do your interview. The interview you're doing is with someone that worked at Kmart, that worked at Starbucks, right? And they're telling you you're not qualified to be an engineer. And then if you get the interview, you're talking to a manager, and that person's also someone that worked at Starbucks. You see what I'm saying? If you get the job, then you have someone like a Gen X. This is what you do. If you don't have any skills, you don't have any experience, you can't do anything, then you become a manager. This is what you do. So this is why all the Gen X people, they're managers. None of them have skilled jobs. None of the boomers have skilled jobs. You want to know who has skilled jobs? The boomers' parents. You want to know who has skilled jobs? Millennials. Millennials go out, they go to university, they get an education, they do a skilled job, they get a trade, they get a profession. But most Gen X people, all the Gen X people I know, all they do is they just managers because they don't know how to do anything. So they have other people do the work for them.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, the thing is, I work in training. Like I'm an expert consultant and I'm an expert trainer, and I do work with HR as a trainer. And I've done this for the last decade, working for some very big companies. You know, Ramco Oil being one of them. And like I said, what I found from the other trainers, the trainers that I sent them to for their specialization, the main thing they're telling me is that they're not equipped and they're not ready to be trained at that level. So there's a disconnect between HR and the people that we're training, and not preparing them for the skilled job that they're going to be doing in the field. You know, when they go out, because these guys are sending them out to the field and they're getting on the job training, and they were telling me that they don't have the language ability or you know the ability to communicate to them how to do the job, how to explain how to do the job in the field. So it takes another 2 years of training for them to actually get up to date, and there's just no efficiency. And this is because somebody in HR that doesn't know anything about they don't know anything about the fields that they're hiring for the trainers. They don't know, you know, what the field experts are doing, and they don't know anything about the position. You know what I mean? So they put them in these programs, and they're like, okay, that's done. We're done. Next, move on to the next thing. And the reality is that they're just getting inadequately trained because they don't have a system set up properly. So, and you know, even when they bring in consultants, the consultants tell them how to do it. And they're like, no, you're not doing it right. You have to do it. You should be doing it this way and set up your training this way, you know, to make it more efficient. And they wait for the consultant to leave, and then they just ignore everything they tell them. That's what I've noticed in HR.
And HR is a horrible profession. I mean, HR shouldn't even exist. The only reason why you would have HR, in my opinion, is because I understand, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know fully, but my understanding is that
it's liability.
Yeah, well, my understanding is in America, if your company's over a certain size, you legally have to have an HR department. Like it's a legal requirement. I think it's like a requirement to be on the stock market. It's a requirement like for like health and safety and things. Like these are positions, like in my country, you have to have a health and safety officer. Every company has to have a health and safety officer. It's a legal requirement. But that's the only reason why, because it's bullshit like that. What are they doing? They're not. Anyway, let's advance this video. Let's see what this guy has to say.
All right.
Nation of raw talent feeling confused on the effective steps to be able to jumpstart their career. As companies invest 4 times as much into recruiting as they do training, it discourages the true purpose of the entry-level job entirely, as it is more cost-effective to provide as little training as possible and instead demand the skill set is already provided. However, the entry-level job is also in demand, as 92% of executives think the American workers aren't as skilled as they need to be, with Forbes reporting that 59% of employees have no actual workplace training and are entirely self-taught.
You are now employed by one of the most successful restaurants in Bikini Bottom, but it didn't get that way overnight, because the store closes at 6.
Today, not tomorrow, not next week. Today is the day I hope you will donate to.
And whether the demand for the college degree is going to increase or decrease, it's impossible to predict. But one thing that we can say for certain is that the college degree no longer guarantees the same career stability as it once did. And if anything, it actually might be doing the opposite. According to a 2023 survey by Intelligent, of 800 U.S. managers, directors, and executives who are involved in the hiring process, when asked if they avoid hiring recent college graduates for positions they are eligible for in favor of older candidates, 39% of employers said that they do. 60% of employers are willing to implement a variety of different tactics to avoid working with a recent college graduate. 59% offer more benefits and higher salaries to attract older workers. 48% let older employees work remotely or in a hybrid format. And 46% were willing to hire an older employee who is overqualified for the position to avoid working with someone younger. And 58% of the 800 surveyed stated recent college graduates are unprepared for the workforce.
One Krabby Patty for me, and a Pipsqueak Patty for the boy.
Now, wait just a darn minute.
Scott Detman, CEO of Avencia, a US-based career matching service for new graduates, stated, employers are unhappy with the level of talent they are getting in the entry-level space. So instead of trying to take corrective action, they've increased experience requirements. In the last 5 years, we've seen a 20% increase in the number of skills required on job listings. This is where I believe that we really begin to gain insight on the requirements needed for an entry-level job, as well as the confusion for the push of having a college degree, as well as being reprimanded for having one. Which gets us to the chocolate sauce on the sandwich, being what the f do employers actually want? Throughout much of the post-World War II period, the hiring practices of large corporations have evolved significantly. Traditionally, human resource professionals conducted a thorough job analysis to identify the specific tasks required and the ideal attributes of a candidate. They were aware of the reasonable demands needed from the hiring manager and performed a job evaluation to determine the job's position within the organizational structure and its correspondence pay scale relative to other roles. Job advertisements were widely posted on job boards and in newspapers. Roughly after a week of extensive interviews, reference checks, and skill tests, the candidate was then offered the role. However, according to a 2019 article on the Harvard Business Review, about 40% of U.S. companies, according to research by Korn Ferry, have outsourced much, if not all, of the hiring process to recruitment process outsourcers, which in turn often use subcontractors. And I was slightly suspecting this to be the case. However, I had no idea the magnitude at which this is happening. What is becoming increasingly more popular for the job hiring process is the hiring manager to write down a wish list of qualities and requirements the potential candidate should have. This then would have historically gone to a seasoned recruiter, where they would help gauge the necessary requirements for the role. However, this is largely now just sent to a hiring staff of HR. Now, the reality is that in many cases, the hiring staff then outsources this very thing to a third-party recruiting process. And depending on the third-party recruiter, they may then use AI models to sort through the requirements needed to help create the job posting. The candidate that now applies for that very role will first have to pass through an application tracking system, or ATS. Once they have done so, they will then experience their first round of interviews. However, this is typically also done by a third-party interview network, which then is followed by an interview within the HR department, and may then be followed by an actual interview with the hiring manager. And if your feathers are not ruffled enough, only 39% of hiring teams received interview training. And I believe this to be a very large issue with job postings as a whole, but most importantly, the entry-level position. As I suspect, what we are seeing in the job posting is substantially different from what the hiring manager actually asked for and isn't necessarily relevant to what the actual job is going to entail. To further explore this, I went to ChatGPT and typed in to create an entry-level job for a YouTube company as if you were the hiring manager. And this was the result. First off, this looks extremely similar to most listings on Indeed. And secondly, the requirements for the most part do not reflect what I would consider to be entry level and are not what I would deem necessary as someone that creates YouTube videos, having started with no experience. And while I totally understand that ChatGPT pulls from the internet and uses predictive programming to give you the end result, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that recruiters may be using ChatGPT or something of that nature to create the postings that many of us see today. And if I didn't actually create YouTube videos, I could have looked at the posting that it created and thought, yeah, that seems fair, because I had no reference point to be able to understand what is actually needed for that job. So imagine what manufacturing, engineering, software postings are going to look like. If you're not actually an expert in that industry, how do you have any idea what is actually needed to qualify for that position? And I think that's where a large portion of this divide is actually coming from. And according to that same article on Harvard Business Review, only about a third of US companies report that they monitor whether their hiring practices lead to good employees. Few of them do so carefully, and only a minority even track cost per hire and time to hire. So it truly could be the Wild West of what is actually taking place in these job listings.
So yeah, like, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, so like what we had covered in, previously, like he went over literally like
This is your brain when you're struggling
hold on
to
a second.
focus.
Sorry.
And this is your brain.
All right, that's better. Yeah, he basically went over like exactly what we were talking about the HR gatekeepers that literally, as you were saying, they were bringing in like these entry level like management people in HR, and they're using AI chat GPT to like make the adverts because they have no clue what the job requirements are for the position. They just basically go on a Google search and they look up key points of things that are required for certain positions, instead of actually asking the hiring manager or asking the supervisor in the field like what they're looking for.
Even the supervisor or the hiring manager, this is the problem. The supervisor or the hiring manager is also just a more experienced person that worked at Starbucks. And they're, the person that maybe is HR is just some random person that worked at Starbucks. The supervisor for the team is the Starbucks manager that worked at the same Starbucks. So they can go talk to each other. The problem is that the manager, the supervisor, the hiring manager, all these people, they also don't know anything about software engineering. They don't know anything about manufacturing cars. So they also think, okay, so we just need someone that knows how to do this. So let's just hire someone with 3 years of experience. Like, this is the structural problem that we've created in the marketplace.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, the analogy, like I said before, when I like working in corporate training, I'm training these people and they're giving me books and stuff and certain guidelines to teach them like the languages and the communication that they're going to use in the field. And I have to prepare them for the expert trainers, the people the skilled trainers, the people that are actually from the field and worked in the field for 20 plus years, that are training them on how to use the equipment, how to like actually like function in the field. And they're telling me that basically these people are coming unprepared to be trained. And I'm like, well, yeah, so I see the disconnect here. So I went to HR and I was like, hey dude, these guys, we're not teaching them the stuff they need in order to be successful in the field training. We're basically just teaching them useless stuff that they don't need, and we're wasting their time, and we're wasting the company's time. And they're like, oh well, okay, and then never got a response. You know what I mean? Like they either don't know or they don't give a fuck.
And that's why HR didn't hire you. Okay.
Yeah, that's why the shit
Yeah,
came
that's
me. They're like, all right, get the fuck out of here. You're making too much trouble for us. You're like making us look stupid.
If it was a meritocracy, like they claim it was a meritocracy, then they would have been like, okay, well, it wouldn't work like this because who would be doing the firing? It would be HR, right? But there'd be some program coordinator that you could go to and you would say, look, man, these HR people, they're ruining everything. They're shutting it all up. I've told them that, the feedback that we've got is very negative. We need to do all these. There's a list of complaints that I have about our program, and I want to fix it. I want to fix it so that, we don't have problems downstream when, we're trying to actually do work to make the business money. And the manager would be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So what's the problem? And you're like, well, the problem is these people in HR that they don't want to fix the program and implement any of the changes. They'd be like, okay, well, we'll get rid of them because they're not making the company money and they're actually creating problems for the company, and we'll promote you and give you a pay rise and put you in charge, and you just sort it out, and then that would be how it would work. But that's not how it works. That's absolutely not how it works. And I know it's not how it works because I have relatives and people that I know and things like this. And look, I'm just saying, I know a situation where One person, 1 week, they saved the company like $7 million. They saved the company like $700,000. The next week, their manager or supervisor or someone above them that works in the same office or something that's making 3 times, 4 times as much as them, they go and they make some stupid decisions, and the company loses like $7 million. You see what I'm saying? Now,
Yeah, exactly.
are there any repercussions for the person that makes the company $700,000? No. You think, oh, you're going to get a bonus, you're going to get maybe some time off, you're going to get like a promotion, a title, maybe you're going to get better office stationery, whatever it is. Nothing. No, zero. The person that loses the company millions of dollars, does she get fired maybe for losing the company? Like
No.
15 years of her pay or 20 years of her pay? No, she doesn't get fired. Does she get a warning? No. Does she get have responsibility taken away from her because hey, this person's already lost us millions of dollars. Maybe we should give a little bit less decision-making authority to this person so that they don't lose us more money. No, you see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, this is how the marketplace is. Like these people, they're employees. They don't care. The managers, they don't care. They're employees. But what they do is they want you to care, or they want you to pretend to care, because at the end of the day, for some reason, we're all going to pretend to care. But if you actually care, then you're creating problems. You're creating work for people to do. You're the problem. We need to get rid of you. We're not here to shake the boat, or we're just here to run the clock out. We start at 9, we finish at 5. We push the button at the beginning of the day. We clip the ticket at the end of the day. And that's just what we're here to do. We're not here to do anything, shake anything up. We can make money, we can lose money. Who cares? If someone makes a lot of money, that's good. If someone loses a lot of money, who cares? And you're just going to be paid what you're going to be paid.
100%. Yeah, like I said, the old Soviet motto, we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us. That was the motto in the Soviet Union, or either way around. But that's the reality, is that you go to work to show face, to just look, to look pretty. That's why, the women, and they dress up and they do the hair, and they wear the nice little boss bitch, like skirt and or clothes, and they want to wear a pantsuit to look like they're like a boss bitch, like they're a man. And they just do nothing all day, like just basically cost the company money, and then open their mouth. And
no, if they do nothing, that's a success, Professor Redpill. You got to understand, doing nothing is a good thing, because there's a lot of things you can do that can lose you a lot of money. And I'm not saying just women are good at this, but that when it comes to DEI, it seems that DEI outperforms cisgender white men when it comes to losing money.
Yes, very much so. And they wonder why like companies are failing. Like I said, if you look at, and we'll talk about this on another podcast, but if you look at the S&P and its current state in the last quarter, it's hit record numbers. Like the market has hit record numbers. And these are the most successful companies in the United States, in the global community for that matter, because a lot of them are multinational. So, I mean, these are the most profitable companies, and they've outpaced inflation in the last quarter. They didn't outpace inflation previous quarters or in the last 2-3 decades, but they've recently outpaced the rate of inflation. And this is the first time in the history of the stock market, of the S&P. And it shows that DEI and diversity, it does nothing but good things for the economy and for the GDP and for multinational corporations. Diversity is our strength.
And I want to say, it used to be considered just as conventional wisdom that a person that does nothing is better than a person that does something. Because let's face it, right? If you're a big business, you have your Ubisoft, you make video games, you make Assassin's Creed. Your plan is to make Assassin's Creed, one Assassin's Creed game every year for the next 100 years. That's your business model. Your whatever it is you're doing, your Marvel, you make movies. Your goal is to make 4 movies a year of homosexuals running around in latex BDSM gear, chasing each other and whacking each other on a digital screen with a bunch of plastic dildos or whatever it is they're doing. That's your business model, right? That's making them money. It's making them $1 billion a year, whatever it is, right? that means that their company's worth like $20 billion, you see, on the stock market. So if someone like me comes along and they're like, okay, well, let's change the shape of the plastic dildos, let's change the color of the BDSM gear, let's do something, let's rock it up, let's make the movie more of a horror movie, let's make it more of whatever, and I start changing things, or I start making another movie of another type. Now they're not making $1 billion a year. Well, you know, if they're not making $1 billion a year, that company's not worth $20 billion. So maybe they could make $2 billion a year if they do some of this stuff, or maybe they're only going to make $500 million a year. Well, they don't want to turn around to the shareholders and explain why they lost $10 billion. So the conventional wisdom is better to do nothing than do something, and that's the same not just for the CEO. It's the same at every level of these companies. So this is why these companies, they're very adverse to any sort of change. Because if you change anything, especially you got to understand these people that run these companies, they don't know what they're doing. They're not technical people. They don't know how anything works. So they're scared. You change anything, it's going to break. That's what they're scared. It's like me, I don't know necessarily how some car or machine works or something like that. You say, well, I'm going to start modifying this machine that we're making all our money on. And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I mean, if you're going to modify this machine, and if you put it back together again and it doesn't work, we can't make any money. And you can't ship any products out. We lose all our customers. We go out of business next week, you know. So this is how these people are feeling. But nowadays with DEI, it's all about empowering the diversity. It's about bringing in these people with these new ideas, these new ways of doing things, and it's about supporting these people and making their image, making their stamp, putting their image over the company, and trying new things. And what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of failures. We're seeing a lot of damage being done throughout the economy.
Yeah, 100%. That's the reality. Let me continue with this guy. We're almost done. Oh, I got it off. Sorry.
A man named Sebastian Ramirez spotted a job posting that required 4+ years of Fast API, which is a web framework for building HTTP-based service APIs in Python. What is ironic about this is that Ramirez couldn't even apply for this role because he only had 1.5 years of experience, because he was the actual creator of Fast API. And I personally don't believe that there is any malicious intent in the majority of these postings, except for ghost jobs. I personally believe that the majority of this is just happening with individuals that are inexperienced in these individual sectors and are using tools in an inefficient manner. I personally believe that largely what we are seeing as requirements in these postings are just exaggerated wish lists of a hiring manager. In fact, a 2000
Yes. Yeah, so basically what he's saying is, I like how this guy cucks even here. He's like, oh, well, you know, like, I don't think there's any maliciousness to this. And it's like, dude, it's just call it what it is, man. They're incompetent. Not only are they incompetent, but they're lazy. They're DEI, you know, and then on top of that, you got to also put the fact that a lot of these job search sites, they're getting paid per click. So they're creating ghost jobs in order to get clicks to their website to make profit off the ad revenue, because that's how they make money.
And
they make money from the ad revenue.
They know they're incompetent. Let's face it. You're going in for a job interview, and if you know more about that job than your manager, or you know more than the other people on their team, they're not going to give you that position, because they're going to be scared. What happens if there's someone above you in the company that maybe it's not even, you know, if they even care about whether or not you're going to do a better job than them, but maybe, you know, maybe also they think you're a cooler person than them. Maybe they're intimidated by you physically, or by your personality, by your charisma, by whatever it is. Maybe it's some chick and you're another chick, and there's some hot guys there, and the chick wants to get with the other hot guys. Even if she's not like consciously thinking about this, you know, she's going to be very careful about letting in someone that's a hotter chick than her, because you see, that's going to reduce her options. That's going to reduce her value. You know, and a lot of her value in that company is the fact that she's the hot chick, right? So she doesn't want to get passed up when it comes to relationships, when it comes to having a bit of fun, hooking up, maybe getting promotions, things like this. She doesn't want to get passed up by another hot chick, right? So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? What can I say?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the thing is like the funny thing that he mentioned in here, This guy's name again. If you guys want, like, you go ahead and he's got 23,000 subscribers. Damon Cassidy, go ahead and subscribe to him if you want. But yeah, he's talking about this programmer that invented a program, and they started looking because this was obviously a program that was being used or needed in the job field, or in the job sector, and he was the creator of it. Yet it was only around for 1.5 years, and the DEI HR is like asking for 4+ years experience with this programming, and it's like, how the hell do you have 4.5 years of experience when the program's only been out for 1.5 years? It's like, let's go ahead and hire for AI, and we're gonna need you to have 2 decades of experience in AI. And it's like, dude, AI just came out like 5 years ago, if that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I've seen worse. I've seen worse, Professor Red Pill. I've seen them tell you that you need to have so many years of experience, and they specifically mention systems that are proprietary to their business. And it's like, how is that even supposed to work? Like, how can you be this dumb? But you ask, how can you be this dumb? Well, obviously they're that dumb because they're doing it, and it's like people are dumb, right? Like, people are
Yeah.
dumb, and it's malicious because people, they only ever hire people less competent than them. Okay, so then you're not a threat. You hire people that are uglier than you. You hire people that are less competent than you. Well, then every generation you get uglier, less competent, shittier people at all of these positions. And a lot of these positions, like, I'm just going to say it straight up, like, I don't like going and applying for jobs. I don't like, the idea. I think if you have to apply for a job and go there and beg them and read their bullshit corporate stuff and say that, you agree with all their like made up corporate values that they don't care about. And now that's part of your personality, and your identity is based on where you work, and I mean, this is like a slave mentality. And then you're going to say a bunch of stuff that is wrong, which is like morally and ethically and philosophically stupid to do. And you're just going to go in there and lie, and they're going to lie, and you're going to lie together. And this is what it is. This is how it is to work in professional services. It's how it is to be a professional. Is you have to speak like some sort of psychopathic politician type person, where you say stuff, and there's words that are strung together and connected in some way, but nothing you say has any meaning because it's all designed with the idea that you're trying to avoid legal liability. Whereas, like, my principle would be, hey, let's provide a good product, let's provide a good service, let's do the right thing, and if we screw up, let's fix it, right? Let's fix the problem. These people, they're like, no, if we screw up, let's turn around and deny it and not do anything and screw our customers over, screw each other over. Like, this is what they're looking for. They're looking for people that have this mentality, that are willing to toe the line, that are willing to lie. And this is how you get the job. This is how you get your foot in the door. You have to go in and be that type of person. But that's not the person that I am. And that's not the people I want to work with. And I think it's stupid. I think that people that do that are a bunch of alpha cuck slave workers. And I have no respect for them.
Yeah, 100%. And even Gonzalo Lira talked about this all the time too. Like Obama, how Obama was like the ultimate beta. And in order to get into these leadership positions, corporate or government alike, you have to be, as a male, you have to be a complete and total beta cuck. That's the only way that you can get through the mainstream to any positions of power, through like a group or project based system. It's only a certain set of individuals that are able to get through that, and it's very rare that you see these individuals overall successful. I can't even name, because, like, even we're talking about like Trump, right? Would you consider Trump like an alpha, or would you a sigma, or would you consider him kind of a beta cuck too? That's what I'm wondering. Like,
I don't know. I mean, I feel like, there's a little bit of a difference. Like, there's a little bit of a distinguishing behavior where you have, I mean, I wouldn't really consider him a worker. I'm talking about workers, and I'm saying, look, like, a lot of these people, I mean, like, let's be honest, right? These people, they will do anything for the job. They're trying to find people that have no self-respect, no dignity, no integrity. They're desperate. And this is, in my opinion, job applications, they're humiliation rituals. They make you say a bunch of dumb shit. And if, like, look, if I go in there and I'm not willing to toe the line, I'm not willing to regurgitate out their silly, I mean, I'm not saying I'm not willing to do the work. I'm willing to do the work, of course, if I'm going to the job interview. Hey, whatever, I'll show up, I'll do the 9 to 5, I'll do the work, I'll go home, and that will be the end of it, right? But what they want is they want someone that's willing to do more than that, willing to go further than that. And you need to, insert gratuitous sexual references, so on and so forth. And you need to be really enthusiastic. You need to be really dedicated, or at least be pathetic enough to show that. And I think that there's a very big difference between the type of person that's actually a man, that acts like a man, that has self-respect for themselves, that's willing to go out and take risks and do things. Someone like Donald Trump, someone like Elon Musk, or any of these people, anyone that you can think of that's actually done or achieved or accomplished anything or led anyone, and the type of people they would hire. Like, I don't think Elon Musk would hire another Elon Musk. I mean, he'd be let's face it, right? Objectively, he'd be a terrible employee, but he's actually not that bad as a manager when he has other people to fix up all of his screw ups, right? And same with Donald Trump. When Donald Trump has other people to do 80-90% of the work, then Donald Trump can do quite a good job because he's got the balls. He's willing to go and do things that other people haven't done before. He's willing to be aggressive. He's willing to be assertive. He's willing to be masculine. And this is why in any sort of hierarchy, you're always going to have this. You're always going to have the alpha male at the top, and then you're going to have all the other people at the bottom. And what I will say about that is a lot of these people, yes, they're biological men, but cognitively, they're more like women. And that's what businesses want. Businesses want to hire cognitively female people because females are submissive. They're not going to go out. They're not going to steal the business. They're not going to steal the customers. They're not going to go into competition. They're not going to threaten anyone in leadership in the company. So if you're a man, you go in there, you've got alpha energy, they're going to sense that. They're going to be threatened by that, and they're not going to hire you because at the end of the day, I don't know if you guys seen this, but there are these reality TV shows where they go on islands, things like this. And at the end of the day, you get all of the cucks, you get all of the baiters, you get all of the women, the liberals, the DEI. They get in a corner and they all team up against the alpha men. And then you have the alpha men. The alpha men are thriving. The alpha men are dominating. But then you have all of these other people. They're like losers. And unless they have alpha men to parasite off of, then everything falls apart. And that's what's happening to the American economy. That's what's happening to all these big companies. They've chased the men out of the workplace and they've destroyed these organizations.
100%. 100%. I'm going to continue with this guy. Mr. Damon.
The 2018 survey found that applicants who could meet at least 50% of a posting's requirements were just as likely to get an interview as applicants who met 90% of a posting's requirements. Except this is met with one frustrating mystery: the application tracking system. A survey done in 2023 stated that 98.8% of Fortune 500 companies use ATS. ATS screen and filter resumes to optimize and discover the best candidates for the available position. And while most listings may be exaggerated wish lists, the ATS system doesn't necessarily know that to be the case. In its pursuit of efficiency and keyword optimization, 75% of applications are never actually seen by humans. HR tech journalist J.R. Jonovan states that 88% of employees believe that ATS actually screen out the quality applications with the applicable skill sets because their applications are not best suited to the ATS software. And in this continuous pursuit of efficiency and increasing the bottom line, we arrive to the bun on top of the sandwich: the outsourcing of domestic jobs. Less than 61% of human resource leaders said that in 2023, they were hiring for entry-level and less specialized positions, down from 79% in 2022, according to a PwC survey. And employers expect 23% of all roles to be disrupted in the next 5 years due to the rate in which technology is developing, according to research of the World Economic Forum. Lastly, according to Forbes, it is estimated that approximately 300,000 US jobs are outsourced every year, and largely these are directly taking what would have typically been entry-level positions. So in reality, even if the application process was perfect, simply just the removal of promoting internal hires and instead hiring from outside companies or just outsourcing it altogether, we can see the entry-level job as a whole is just continuously getting replaced. So then we get the olive on top of this Scooby-Doo sandwich, the real meaning of entry level. Now, for most of us, we have the foolish understanding that entry level means no experience, no training, and is simply a place for us to be able to get our foot in the door and jumpstart our careers.
Those words, is it possible to use them in a sentence?
Ollie and Anna seemed so perfect. And what people didn't know was she was screaming
Together like that?
Unfortunately, in most instances, it appears that entry level means asking for experience at a discounted rate. Entry-level jobs that require 2+ years of experience pay 20% less than other jobs that require 2+ years of experience, which leaves you in a position, if you're wanting to start your career or make a career shift in a way that participates in the societal norm of the labor force, you're largely having to take a massive bite out of this Scooby-Doo sandwich. As we begin to conclude this video, I really just want to preface the fact that I am not saying recruiters, hiring managers, third-party recruiters, HR departments, companies, corporations are bad or are malicious. In some ways, probably some are. I think it's impossible to say that they're all good or to remove some blame. I think mostly what is happening is that there's just a lot of inefficiencies. I believe that there's probably a lot of individuals that are really trying to make this chaotic system work in some sort of way. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of these inefficiencies fall on the candidate, fall on the individuals that are wanting to jumpstart their career, wanting to provide for families, wanting to be able to have a future. And I don't think that that is right. But I think largely a lot of this chaotic mess is not something that we can actively control. I can do my best in sharing this, but this is all in a goal or all in pursuit of hopefully taking some of the pressure or blame off yourself for you not achieving whatever the success is in this chaotic mess. I think it's very hard to be able to process 500 applications and not getting approved. What I really am trying to just reiterate is that it's not because of you. It's because of a very inefficient and garbage system. But with that being said, this is in an attempt to still allow you to control what it is that you can do. And I think that as a whole, we need to do a much better job of doing these certain factors of what was actively looked for throughout the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. That when we walk, we need to make sure that we have our heads up, that we have some sort of confidence when we walk, that we have attire that makes us look somewhat professional. I believe that opportunities can come at any time. I believe that a firm handshake is important, that looking someone in the eye during a conversation, these are the certain factors that truly can make a difference. And I understand that it's hard to even get an interview and all of these different aspects, but I believe that if the opportunity does arise, we want to make sure that we're ready for that time. I only got my job when I worked at the bank for 5 years because I went in after high school to get a credit card. And the only reason I got a job offer was just because I was able to hold a conversation with the banker. He thought that I was much older than I was, and that was because of the way that I held myself. When I became an actual banker, I grew out my hair, and I had a picture of myself and my girlfriend when we were still in high school. And so I consistently had older individuals asking me if those were my kids. And the reason was because the way that I presented myself was much older, much responsible, much more confident than what I actually look like. And that doesn't mean that I always feel that way. But I think, again, it's very important to be able to practice some of these practical skill sets. Now, I don't want to take away from the fact that, again, things are very difficult, but I think there's a lot that we can still do, that we can still just try our best on. And please just remember that the responsibility does not lie on you. Just continue to do what it is that you can. And I hope that everything works out for the best. I hope this video was able to provide some value to you. If in HR, a recruiter, a hiring manager, and I got something wrong.
All right, yeah, so yeah, I mean basically he concluded, like I said, be a strong stoic person, which I do advocate, you know what I mean? Because I've had that too, where I've talked my way into a position. I've done that maybe 3 times, 4 times in my life. And it was because, yeah, I came off very confident, strong, and using effective communications, all part of the red pill leadership style that I preach. To be self-aware, um, communicative, or use of effective communication skills, and be authentic. And I think those pillars definitely will give you an advantage over other people. However, when dealing with HR Karens, it's a whole nother story, because I've also had where I've got the job and then I had to go through HR, and then HR Karen was like, oh, I don't want to
Oh
hire
yeah.
you. I'm like, why? Like, you're obviously, your hiring manager wants to hire me. I'm qualified, overqualified for the position, and the salary is not high, but I'm willing to accept it and then work from there. And they're like, I just don't want you to hire. I don't want to bring you in here for some reason. Yeah.
I mean, this is exactly my experience as well. I was saying before, I think before the stream or something like this, or maybe on the stream, I can't remember, but I was saying, look, it used to be, if you wanted to get a job, you would just go down, you would shake their hand, you would convince them, you'd go to the bar or whatever, you would meet for a friend or something, and they would say, okay, this guy's a cool guy, he wants to work with us, do we want to work with him? Okay, we'll hire him. The economy's doing well, we can always hire more people, charge them out, make more money, because this is what you do. If the economy is good, you're always hiring, everyone's always hiring, and it's actually, you have more people hiring than you have people applying, right? So it's very easy to get a job. And then, nowadays, it's the other way around. The economy is very bad. A lot of what these people are saying, a lot of it's like correct. A lot of it was stuff that we were predicting, or we were saying, and then he said, or we thought, and then he said, and so on and so forth. And then we were discussing. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, if the economy is doing well, then you're going to have you're going to have an easy time getting a job. But
Yeah, there's gonna be opportunities.
if,
Definitely opportunity. Even entry level. Even at entry level, there'll be opportunities. Definitely.
yeah, well, even in advanced jobs, right? Like if it's a hard time for the employees, because the economy is doing well, then they have to settle. It doesn't matter. Like, all this stuff he was talking about is irrelevant, because it all comes down to how good the economy is. You can have stupid people running things that can't train people. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if the economy is doing well, you need workers. If you don't hire them, you can't do anything. So even if it's dysfunctional, you're going to hire them. You're going to make do. You're going to improvise. But what I'm saying is that in the old days, you used to just have to convince one or two people. Nowadays, you have to go through the ATS, you have to go through HR, you've got to go through maybe multiple different HR people, multiple different levels of HR. You go through the supervisor, the hiring manager, maybe other supervisors, maybe other people on the team, and you have to convince maybe 6 people, 8 people, 10 people in a row. And all it takes is one person to say, I don't like this person. So it's much harder to get a favorable opinion from 10 people in a row than it is just to impress one person. And it's also much harder to get a job when you're in a pool of 5,000 people. And that's why they're being so picky, because, if they have 500 applicants, 5,000 applicants, guess what? You can be stoic, you can give the firm handshake, but if there's 500 or 5,000 other people, maybe you get the job, maybe you don't. But all I'm saying is there's a lot of people that are not going to be employed. And that's the market we're in right now.
Yeah, and I mean the difference between the modern landscape, or of HR and hiring and applying and work and industries. A lot of jobs get outsourced overseas to cheaper, more affordable labor. The other thing is like during the post World War II era, there were more jobs than there were people. So obviously there was a heavier influence on hiring people to train and to provide them skills, and there was more longevity because they felt there was more stoicness, you know, and it was predominantly male dominated during that time in the 30s through the, you know, the 40s through the 60s, and men had integrity and honor. So like they would basically stay with a company for 20 years. So, you know, yeah, you trained me, you gave me the job skills, you gave me a job, and there was loyalty, and the company was loyal to them and they were loyal to the company. Now times have changed where there's more applicants than there are jobs, and now it's a point where the employer treats people like they're wage slaves, and that's where the concept of modern wage slavery comes from. And now the fact that the cost of living has outgrossed the standard wages in the United States, and this is not only in the entry level, but even in upper level and skilled labor, as well as upper middle class, you know, like highly skilled labor. People are now living paycheck to paycheck. Even people making 100 grand a year, six-figure income, that are in the top 15 percentile of wage earners, they're now living paycheck to paycheck because, you know, they're paying $500,000 for a small family home. You know, and if they're the only person working in the household,
I'm really glad you brought that up, because
yeah,
I did want to bring that up, because one of the other thing, I kind of really disagreed with him about this idea that you know, all of these things that he mentioned and we mentioned was the problem, because ultimately, as I said, I mean, it doesn't matter if the job market's doing good. Then you can be racist, you can be incompetent, you can be whatever. You can say, I don't want to hire this person, he's too young, whatever. It doesn't matter, because you're going to hire someone, right? Because, you know, you either hire them and you get the work done, or you shut your business down, or you leave money on the table. And in either situation, the business owner is not going to be happy with that, right? Because he wants a bigger boat, or he wants to continue having his lifestyle or whatever. So he needs the money coming in. So you've got to do it. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is that the other part I really disagreed with him on is, I really disagreed with this guy on the idea that being a worker is something that defines you as a person. I think that if you're defined as a person by the work you do, and, you know, I'm not saying that in terms of like reputational sense, you know, there'll be someone, they'll have an accomplishment, they'll have an achievement. Maybe they're a soldier, maybe they're a general, maybe they're a scientist, and they do something, they invent something, they create something, they start a business. I understand, you know, this is what people know you for. This is your reputation. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about the way you see yourself as a person. I don't think you should be valuing yourself as a person based on where you work, who you work with, and how much money you make. And I think that if that's something that's important to you, I mean, obviously, we all have to pay our own bills. I'm not trying to diminish that. I'm not saying money isn't important or jobs aren't important. You know, if what you need to do, what you know you need to do to live, of course, you know. So I'm not against that. I'm just saying, right, that this person, he's overly emphasizing the importance of jobs. And keep in mind, guys, I'm not just saying, hey, making money is lame, don't make money, whatever. I'm saying, you know, there's other ways to make money. You don't need to just be an employee. There's contracting, there's gig work, there's starting your own business. There's all sorts of things you can do. But the default assumption, I think, that you need to define yourself by a job, you need to go and get a job. I think that's a slave mentality. And I think people should be thinking, especially when you understand, you know, it doesn't matter what you do. If there's 500 people or 5,000 people per job, or even 100 people per job, chances are, you know, unless you're able to stand out in some way, you're going to be unemployed. So I think what's not just more of like a red pill alpha male type thing to do, but also more of a practical, a pragmatic, and a realistic thing to do is think about starting your own business. Think about contracting. Think about doing gig work. Think about doing other things other than trying to go down this employee pathway. Because yes, you can go down this employee pathway, and if you can get a job, sometimes you can use the information you get from your workplace to start up another business in the same sector. You get connections, you get things like this. This is a good way to go. But ultimately, you know, just based on how hard it is to get a job, just based on the wages and where the wages stack up in relation to cost of living. It used to be you could go and be an alpha slave and be a cuck and be a beta male and be a conservative and vote for the Republicans and vote for gay sex in the privacy of your bedroom and legal immigration and things like this. And, you know, you're able to make a living, you're able to have a wife, you're able to have a house, children, cars, a second house, an RV, do all these other things, fly overseas. Nowadays, if you try and do all of that, what do you get? I mean, you're not really getting anything back. You know, despite voting harder and harder every year for the Republicans, despite working harder, despite putting more effort in. You're getting less and less back. And, I think if, you're putting more in, you're getting less back. You need to evaluate, what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's oh, like I'm saying, like basically, if jobs are going overseas, you need to make the consideration of possibly going overseas to take a job overseas, especially the fact that jobs are readily available overseas, and they're looking for skilled people, predominantly people from Western economies that are already skilled, that are already educated, and sometimes it might be better off going overseas to start a business or like work as a consultant or something in that capacity, and in a developing economy. And I've done that in the past, and I've been fairly successful doing it. So like I said, I've had multiple different jobs. I've worked in different fields. I've been cross trained between a lot of different types of skill jobs, and I've acquired a lot of assets. Because the main thing too is don't worry about taking a job that you may not be familiar with, or a career that you may not have a lot of experience in. If there's a job that you've been offered and it pays well or it pays decent, yeah, take it. Learn the skill, learn the job. Worst case scenario, you have those job skills and you have the training that could be applied to another field or another position later on. And I've had that in the past as well.
And if you need to have a job, or you want to have a job, think about getting a job of some kind, whether it's overseas, whether it's gig work, whatever it is, whether it's consulting, contracting, other ways of gaining some sort of employment, self-employment, and things like that, where maybe you're not as reliant on going through these processes. Maybe you're trying to get a job in an economic zone where there's less competition, there's less wokeness, there's less DEI and things like that, or where there is DEI, but where if you're working in China, they'll hire you because it's, they call it white face. They want to have a white face person, and it's a diversity job. They're hiring you because in some of these countries, Asian countries, whatever it is, they want to look legitimate to their own consumers, to their own people. So they put you, and you just stand around, you're like a monkey, and you do a little monkey dance for them, and they give you money. And those are jobs as well. But all I'm saying, look, whatever you're doing, if you're working for someone else, it's always better to be working in a position where you're getting networks, you're getting connections, you're learning how an industry works, something like this. And then potentially, if you decide later on, or if you want to, then you can move into competition. Like I was doing some construction work, I was working with someone, and as an example of this, one of the guys there, he was telling me that he doesn't like the management. He doesn't like the way that half the company quit because the management sucks. And no one wants to work with these boomers. No one wants to work with these Gen Xers. They're being ripped off. They're being poorly paid, mistreated, things like this. He was saying he was going to go into business with his friend, and he was going to get a lease on a truck and rent a digger out per job. And he was going to go and contract out and charge $40,000 a job, just like his employer. But he was going to do it with himself and his wife, and his wife was going to do the administrative work, and they were just going to do it from their house. Whereas, the competitor, they're boomers. They've got a big building. They've got a whole bunch of boomers and Gen X people that don't do anything. They've got a lot of overheads. They own all their own equipment. This guy, if he just gets a lease, he just rents the excavators on a per truck basis, things like this, per job basis. He's able to charge $40,000. He only needs to get a few jobs a year. He already has connections. He's been on the job site. He's been talking to people that come out, clients that come out, things like this. He knows how to do it all. He's seen how it's done. He can do it, right? So this is something, a lot of people, they can get themselves in a job like this. Maybe the pay's not good. Maybe you're not covering your costs, whatever. But then after a year or two, you can go in. Some people I know, they were quoted $20,000, $30,000 US to lay foundations for their house. For someone to come out with a digger, grade the whole site, pour in a bunch of loose metal, compact it down with a compactor, roll it, whatever. This is like machine hire, maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days for each machine sort of thing. This is like at most a week's work. It's not even a week's work. Like, let's be honest, this is like 2-3 days work, 20,000-30,000 US dollars. So there's a lot of money to be made in some of these industries. You just need to figure out how you can get out of this rat race and avoid being an employee.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Let's It's up to you. Do you want to read it? Do you want me to share the story about the Karen that reported me to HR, or do you want to go over the?
Oh yeah, I think you should read that because I think just read it out. That's hilarious.
Okay. And then you have the other article about the National Pet Day comes to the workplace. We're gonna do that last, and then I guess
Both of those are great.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up after that, and we'll go on to the next podcast. Podcast 20. We're at 23. We're gonna do 24 next. All right. Anyway, so you want me to bring it up, or should I just read it?
Yeah, just bring it up on the screen and read it out, and we'll just listen as it, and then we'll comment at the end. I think maybe or whatever you want to add some comment.
That's fine. There we go. All right, cool. Should be up. There we go. All right. So I quit. Karen reported me to HR for it. I was the director of sales ops for a $40 million a year software company. Karen was on my team. We processed purchased orders. Karen had a small vehicle accident that put her in a neck brace. She also needed once a week physical therapy appointments and had some restrictions on duties, all of which I was accommodated. No issue. Despite meeting her needs, Karen decided coming into work was optional. HR noticed that she was repeatedly absent for work 3 to 4 days at a time, multiple weeks in a row. They did not give me details, but told me documentation from her doctor did not justify all of these absences. To make matters worse, Karen would never give up notice that she was going to be out, and sometimes would just no-show without ever calling, nor indicated how long she would be out. HR eventually told Karen, she needed to either attend work more regularly or get a doctor to sign off on a short-term disability. This worked for me. I'd rather Karen take extended time off so I could get a temp to take over her responsibilities than to be absent frequently with no warning. Karen's original doctor would not document a need for disability, so she found a doctor who would. Obviously, doctor shopping. She bragged to the team that she found a doctor that would sign off on anything. So Karen went on disability, and I was able to get a temp to cover her until she returned. Even though coworkers who kept in contact told me Karen was going to clubs and dancing and such, and I didn't care. That was between her and HR. For now, at least, the work was getting done. The time period of Karen's short-term disability eventually expired. At this point, she either had to come back to work or go on long-term disability so I could replace her permanently. Karen's sign anything doctor would not give her documentation for long-term disability, of course, because the long-term disability is under the government, and they're not going to sign off anything in government. It is what it is. So Karen gradually came back to work. She quickly went back to being absent all the time. She also refused to do even the basic duties of her job. I went to HR and told them things were not working out and that I wanted to replace her. They were on board with this plan. HR brought Karen in for the talk. But Karen flipped out and said she would sue. Suddenly, HR was not on board. Didn't matter that Karen really had no legal standing. Just the threat of a lawsuit made HR decide it was more important to make Karen happy than to let me have a functional department. And in one instance, I asked Karen to do purchase orders review, and she complained to HR about me bossing her around. I'm her boss? ? HR told me that I could no longer give assignments or work duties to Karen. WTF? ? When I said this was fine, as long as they let me hire someone else to do Karen's job, they refused to give me a rec for a new employee. This went on for months, and Karen quickly learned she could complain to HR about anything and get her way. You would not believe the accommodations she was given. Meanwhile, she made no effort to hide that she was not really injured anymore, was barely coming to work, but was still getting paid. She even encouraged other team members to take advantage of this loophole she had found. Interesting. Then one day during month end crunch, Karen had not come in or called. So I called to ask if she planned to work that day. It was a simple question, carefully crafted to be a neutral tone. She told HR that I was harassing her with my phone calls. I got written up. So I immediately put in 2 weeks' notice, not going to deal with my career being effed by a woman who had worked maybe 6 days in a month, especially when I gave 60 to 70-hour work weeks to the company. Um, with me suddenly gone, the sales department fell apart. Purchase orders were not going through. To address this emergency, a company senior vice president took over sales until my replacement could be found. HR was certainly not going to tell this guy he could not give Karen duties, so Karen actually had to work. About a month after I quit, Karen got my home number and called me, furious that she now had to actually work. She told me she was going to report me to HR for a company I no longer worked for. And sure enough, she did exactly that. I kept in touch with members of my old team, and they told me she was laughed out of the HR office. But here's how it gets absurd. Karen called me again, cursing, screaming, threatening me, and demanding I give her the contact information for my HR at my new company. Oh god. She was going to report me to the department that had no idea who she was, nor had any jurisdiction over her complaints rather. The stupidity was unbelievable, and I giggled at her up until I hung up and blocked her. Interesting. Last I heard, Karen was finally fired, got zero unemployment benefits, and ended up moving her and her kids in with her mom. So she ended up moving in with her mom. This is HR Karen. This is the type of people that work in, like, this is the type of typical person that like works in HR. They know how to game the system, and they do their best to game it basically. So any thoughts there, Lupiter?
I just think the entire thing is ridiculous. Like it's a ridiculous story. Now, what I will say in defense of the HR, and this is giving them a big benefit of the doubt. I think probably it's not this, but I mean, I've worked in management before, and what I can tell you is these managers, particularly these Gen X people, they're assholes. They're incompetent. They're lazy. They don't really know what they're doing, but they want to do things, but they don't really care. And sometimes they will, things like these legal things, they will come into question, and they would rather burn and lose a lot of money and take a long time to implement some process. And really, they could probably implement that process in like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or maybe they have to wait a month or two and then have a separate thing that they bring up, and then they're going to fire her for an unrelated reason, so she can't sue or something like this. So they've made some calculation. They've decided, well, it's better just to wait and burn another 3 months' salary, because keep in mind, employees in America, employees in the West, they're not paid much anymore. So keeping someone around that doesn't do work, it's not actually that big of a burden for the company, right? As long as someone else is doing the work. So maybe they were going to do something in the future, but obviously, if that was the case, they should have communicated that to the manager, the supervisor. Generally, when they do these sorts of things, it's kind of quasi-legal, and they're trying to get around. They're trying to do things, around the process, or do a different process. So they try and keep the written communications down, because obviously these sorts of things can come out if it ever gets to court. So they'll do things. They'll remove evidence in advance in case anything's going to happen. They'll clean the business up, and they're just trying to avoid liability. In this case, I just think no one really cares. It's a business. Everyone's just there. It's a job. And they don't care. The only time something matters is when something really isn't working. And then, it's only a problem because if things really don't work, the board loses their job. That's what happens. The shareholders have their next annual meeting, and they ask, why is the company falling apart? And they blame the board. So the board is scared of that happening. So the board, if something isn't working, the board's going to fire the CEO pretty quickly, right? And the CEO, he only cares about not being fired. So if something isn't happening, he knows what's up. He knows if something isn't working, the board's going to get replaced. So before they get replaced, they're going to fire him. So he knows that he's going to fire someone before he gets in trouble. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that goes all the way down to the bottom. So it's only when it's a big problem that anyone starts doing anything or caring. And that's just because someone above them is going to be held personally responsible for the shitstorm that they're in.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me of Office Space. I'm gonna go ahead and play that. I'm gonna play this clip, by the way. Like that. This is basically the pinnacle of like what we're talking about. So here, let me get it on the big screen.
Peter, Michael, what the hell's going on, man? I thought you were gonna come in here and start shooting.
No, I just came to get my address book. I'm not gonna stay. I got a phone number, Mike, that I don't want to lose.
What? Peter, you're in deep shit. You were supposed to come in on Saturday. What were you doing?
Michael, I did nothing. I did absolutely nothing, and it was everything that I thought it could be.
Well, I hope you have a better story than that for Lumberg. You know, you're supposed to be having your interview right now with the consultants.
The who?
The consultants? What has gotten into you?
Oh, yeah. Right.
Wait, Peter, you gotta postpone it, man. Tell me you've been sick. Make something up.
Oh, no way. No, I feel great. It's the best day of my life.
Looks better. Looks like a Peter Gibbons.
Uh-huh.
Oh, there you are. We were just talking about you. You must be Peter Gibbons. Uh-huh. Terrific. I'm Bob Slidell. This is my associate, Bob Porter.
Oh, hi, Bob. Bob?
Pretty much go ahead and grab a seat and join us for a minute or two. You see, what we're actually trying to do here is we're trying to get a feel for how people spend their day at work. So, if you would you walk us through a typical day for you?
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late. I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour. Till I'm
Space out?
Yeah, I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch, too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
Peter, would you be a good sport and indulge us and just tell us a little more?
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something about TPS reports.
TPS stands for?
The thing is, Bob, it's not that I'm lazy. It's that I just don't care.
Don't care?
It's a problem of motivation, all right? Now, if I work my ass off and Initech ships a few extra units, I don't see another dime. So where's the motivation? And here's something else, Bob. I have 8 different bosses right now.
I beg your pardon?
8 bosses.
8?
8, Bob. So that means that when I make a mistake, I have 8 different people coming by to tell me about it. That's my only real motivation, is not to be hassled. That and the fear of losing my job. But you know, Bob, that'll only make someone work just hard enough not to get fired.
Would you bear with me for just a second, please?
Okay.
What if, and believe me, this is so hypothetical, but what if you were offered some kind of a stock option equity sharing program? Would that do anything for you?
I don't know, I guess. Listen, I'm gonna go. It's been really nice talking to both of you guys.
Absolutely. The pleasure's all on this side of the table, trust me.
Good luck with your layoffs, all right? I hope your firings go really well.
Excellent.
Great. Wow.
So that was a Mike Judd movie. He also did Idiocracy, which is also another interesting concept of society that we're seeing today. And we kind of mentioned that earlier, the previous Red Pill rant, and today in the podcast, that, like you were saying, that basically the hiring people are, managers are hiring people that are just dumber, that little bit dumber than them, a little bit uglier, and then, you know, generation after generation, or like cycle after cycle, the people are getting dumber and dumber and uglier, and it's becoming an idiocracy at its finest.
And guys, that movie, Office Space, it's one of the best movies ever made. If you're interested in that type of comedy, there's also something called Dilbert. There's a bunch of comics, but there's also like a very poorly known animated TV show where there's like 2 seasons in that. I don't know where you can legally get that. Obviously, everything's on the internet. So I guess, if you're smart, you can figure out how to do that. But yeah, I mean, this is how it is. I mean, this is how, and this is what consultants do. And this is how you make money. This has been how you make money in the economy for a very long time. It's no one's really doing anything, creating anything. What you do is you take a big company that already exists and you lay people off. And when you lay people off, the share price goes up. And that's all they ever do. And then, in between these economic cycles, they employ a lot, they hire people back on, they get fat again, and then they go for another round of redundancies, another round of layoffs. And believe it or not, there are people that make all their money coming in doing layoff consultancy. And that's what a lot of management consultancy actually is.
Yeah, there's also project management as well, like you see like at PwC and a lot of software companies where they're working on a project and they bring on more than enough or more than they need. They start trickling people off, and then when the project is canceled or finished, that's when they just do the big axe. They start laying massive layoffs. Especially during downturns, like you said, like during recessions and whatnot. So I mean, it's just this is a common occurrence. That's why people have got no loyalty to their employer anymore, especially when they stop offering pension plans, and they stop offering French benefits and healthcare and different things. With Obamacare
and stock options,
stock option equity, things of that nature. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know anybody that offers that anymore. Even at PwC, I don't know if they even offer anything like that anymore. Let's go ahead and we're gonna wrap up with the super fun Fridays, and this is kind of the here, let me go and present it. There we go. So we've got the Friday fun. National Pet Day comes to the workplace, and to all the pets who keep us sane and Amid work remote. Amid work remote, yeah, remote working. Oh, so this is your article, Lupiter. Why don't you go ahead and explain the reality of this, your theory? I
Okay,
guess.
I've got a. I don't have the article in front of me. I have to find it. I have to go into the link so I can read this out. But basically, what this is about females, and this is about females in the workspace, and this is about what happens when you bring females into the workspace, and how most of these jobs in the workspace, they're not real jobs, right? It's all fake. So what happens is you bring females into the workplace, you bring DEI into the workplace, it kind of turns into a zoo, it also turns into a daycare center. And that's what these people are doing. I mean, I was saying to Coach Red Pill before the stream, I was saying, most people nowadays, they don't have children. They can't afford children, or they have some sort of weird relationship where they're hooking up with random people, or they're doing some random things like this. They don't have children, they have pets. Okay, so pets are a stand-in to children. So when they say bring your pet to work day, they're basically saying bring your child to work day. So if I just read this article, and this is why it's such a joke.
I think you cut out a little bit. Hold on. Yeah, I think you cut out. Yeah,
okay,
you're here.
Okay.
Continue, sorry.
Okay, yeah. So if we can see on this article here, we have the picture that opens the article up, and we have 2 people at work doing what do you think they're doing, Red Bull? You think they're doing a lot of work? Is this a productive workplace? Are these people doing real work, real jobs?
No, it looks like they're fuck all, man. They're just fucking around. FA, like just it's a big distraction. I mean, literally look at it. I mean, you've got the beta cuck here, like, oh look at your little furry relative, your little furry child, and he's like, that's so cute, and she's like, haha, I'm number one. Look at this thing I have. I have no child, and all I have is the workplace and my work, and that I don't do, and I have this dog that I work 40 hours or like some Karen 6 days a month to provide for, and this is my life, you know. You still there with us, brother?
Shit, man, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Hello?
can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh fuck! Okay, just scroll up. I'll read it. I'll read the I'll read it from this window. When I change windows, it cuts me out. But I'll just scroll up and I'll read. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, so this man, he's trying to get with this chick. This chick is a hot single mother. At least by his standards, she's a single mother. I don't know if she thinks he's hot or not. I don't know how much that matters to him, how much he's willing to compromise. But he's trying to get with this chick. So this is her child. And he's like, oh, yes, he's pretending the child's cool. He's pretending he's interested in the child. You know, he's also trying to avoid doing work. But at the end of the day, we know he's trying to get with the chick. So if you scroll down and I can read the text, then I'll read the article. Or you want to read the article?
I'll read the article. So
Okay.
there is no denying the role of pets at the workers. Sorry, let me start over. There is no denying the role of pets to all workers amid the pandemic. So this is an article from 2022. And now it's time to give back. A new movement dubbed as the National Pet Day Off is gaining ground and is set to kick off on Monday, April 11th, to recognize the role of pets in the workplaces and in workers' lives. Several industry leaders, including Tribal Scale, Low Known, Interspace, Ace Beverage Group, Search Engine Journal, and Doggy Bathroom, have signed up to campaign to recognize, celebrate, and incorporate pets into the workplace. These participating industry leaders are also signed up for the following pledges: fundraising for local and Ukraine supporting pet charities, establishing pet-friendly workplace policies, creating exclusive and inclusive programs like Vetster for work for unique needs of pet owners. So the woke language, inclusivity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, pet friendly, and then of course they're supporting Ukraine. So that's that speaks for itself. The wokeism.
And you can tell this article's a little bit dated because they're still talking about Ukraine. They're talking about the pandemic. Of course, nowadays they'll be talking about other things. They'll be talking about the fight against fascism in America with the upcoming election and the fascist dictator that's tried to take over the country. They'll be talking about Israel and how we all need to go and die in the Middle East to protect Israel. They'll be talking about things like this. They'll be talking about inflation and how white people created inflation and how white people are evil because they invented inflation, so on and so forth. These are the types of things they'll be talking about today. But it's just interesting because I think in that article somewhere they actually start touching on these subjects, and they're saying things like, if you bring if you bring dogs to your workplace, you bring cats to the workplace productivity increases. I believe somewhere in this article or in another article I read, it said something crazy like 23, 30-something%.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, so it says, in fact, a study from one poll on behalf of Vester revealed the following benefits of pets according to employees. 48% of pet owners claim to be more productive at work when their pet is nearby. 46% believe their pets help them to break the ice and make new acquaintances. Woo! 39% believe their pets help them to avoid burnout.
Now, I just want you to scroll back up for a second so we can see the picture at the opening of the article, and then we can comment on, do you think that this is doing, what did you say, 38%? Do you think these people are doing 38% more work?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Because I think it's kind of hard to quantify. I think it's it looks like the exact percentage, but I mean,
if there wasn't like laptop, like literally if it just the laptops and coffee's fine and the chair and the situation, but if there wasn't like a whiteboard, I would seriously think that they were at their house on a weekend.
I would think they're at some sort of hip new cafe. Like we don't have Starbucks. Well, we have Starbucks here, but it's not really the Starbucks look. But I could see it. I could see it maybe even at like a hip new bar. There's some of these bars that are open, day bars and things like that. You can go in there, but this doesn't look like. Yeah, I mean, this is obviously fake. But this is what people that are HR managers do. They read articles like this and they implement policies like this. And they give presentations to the board and they say, we have a plan to increase productivity by 38%. And of course, a lot of these HR people are boomers. They don't know anything, or they're Gen X. They don't know anything. So someone comes in, they say they're like an HR professor, or they're an HR. They've got some sort of undergraduate degree in HR, and they've got like 30 years of experience in HR. And they come in and they say they've got these studies here. They give a PowerPoint presentation, whatever. They say we're going to increase productivity by 38%. Then the people, they're not listening. All they're hearing is productivity is going to increase. And they just give the sign off. And now, instead of doing any work, the entire business is bring your child to work day, and you're turning the whole thing into a daycare center. And everyone's like playing with the children and stuff. No one's doing any work. But hey, you've increased productivity by 38% because of HR.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like hogwash to me. Sounds like an excuse not to work, because we know at the end of the day people don't want to work and they try to do anything they can to avoid work. Kind of like Peter had said, I do whatever I can to look busy, and I probably put in about how many, said he probably put in 3 hours or 6 hours of real solid work during the 40-hour work week, something like that.
I think he said something like that. He says he works like 15 minutes a day or something on a good day.
That's the workplace, man. And it's like, the reason why he said that is because most people don't fucking work at work. They go to work to hang out. It's a pageant, especially when women enter the workplace. It's no longer a place of work. It's a place to fuck around and look pretty and look like you're working and look productive.
We have actual data on this. I mean, we don't have it on this stream, but there's actual data on this that exists out there. You can Google search it, and it shows, and this is something that was important during COVID, a lot of people were very upset with working from home, because to them, the biggest part or the most valuable part about their job was the fact that they would then be socializing, interacting. It was the in-person communications and the in-person nature of the work. And when they had that taken away from them, all they had was the job that didn't exist, but they were bored at home all day. They couldn't chat to their other female friends or whatever it is they're doing. The boomers and the Gen Xers couldn't talk about, oh, my house prices went up this much last week. Oh, my stocks went up this much. They can't do that. They can't talk about their favorite homosexuals running around on some sports field somewhere. They can't talk about maybe some millennials or whatever. They want to go there. They're not doing any real work, and they want to talk about what favorite BDSM movie from Marvel that they liked, or what BDSM moves the main characters were doing and things like this. They can't do that to them. That's but for people like me, whatever professionals, they do real work. They have some sort of skills or experience or something like this. I'm not interested. Like, if I want to go to a social club, I'll go to a social club. You know what I mean? I go to work. I want to go to work. I want to get paid. I don't really care. But, you say that to these people. These people, to them, you're insulting their friends, you're insulting their community, you're insulting their social club, and you're insulting them as a person, because, to me, I don't identify with, doing some sort of job. To them, that makes them a powerful person. It makes them an important person. It validates them, because, of course, as a female or something like that, they're not like men. They can't be stoic. They don't have any sense of value that comes from themselves. They have a sense of value that comes from everyone around them, everything around them. So if you're a female, you're in the workplace, you're going to define yourself by that experience. If a man comes in and does not accept that, then that's a rejection of you as a person. And then you're going to be hateful. You're going to spurn that man, because that man, deep down, this is how females work. Their female brains work like this. You've just rejected them on the sexual marketplace. That's what they're thinking when and this is ridiculous. So instead of having workplaces where people go to work, we have to have this clown show where we have these females. The females, they have their place in society. It's not on the sports field. It's not in the work, but it is at kindergartens. So rather than go to a kindergarten, rather than have their own children or look after their own children, they want to turn your male space into a female space. They want to turn your work into a kindergarten. And that way, the kindergarten comes to them. When they go and start there, and they're the first female working there, it's not a kindergarten, it's not a zoo. By the time they hire a whole bunch of females, they get together, they come up with a plan, and before you know it, your workplace is a kindergarten.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's like, dude, like, why don't we just go back to the old way and just have, I mean, like, think about it. Like I'm sure 80%, maybe 70% of jobs today could probably be eliminated to AI, and to just like sending people UBI and just having them like sending women UBI and just having them work from home, like as nannies, as moms, as caretakers. Especially with an aging population with the boomers, like literally just pay them money to sit at home, just take care of elderly people and children instead of paying for daycares and all this stuff and sending your kids to like public schools where they get molested and have homosexual or like transgender or what is it, tranny story hour, shit like that. Just pay them money to sit at home and play with their kids and raise their kids and like have the men actually do the productivity and pay the taxes and like it was in the 50s, because that seemed to work then. I don't know why it doesn't work now.
Right, nowadays they take the male salary, they give half of it to the shareholders, the investors, the bankers, the people that own the commercial real estate, all these different types of things in the finance sector. They give half of what's left after that to some woman that doesn't do anything in the economy, doesn't do anything in the business. In fact, if she does something, it's probably dumb shit like this, turning the place into a zoo, distracting men from doing their actual job, making things worse. And then, so the male, he's getting 25%, of the pay that he used to get, because half of it's going to the female, half of it's going to the shareholders, the banks, and things like this. The government comes along and they say, oh, that's a nice 25%, that's a nice quarter that you have there. We want half of that quarter. So the bank comes along, they take half of your quarter, you've now got an eighth. You've not even got a quarter, you've got an eighth. And that's the modern economy. And so then, you ask, okay, why do we have women in the workplace? Well, now they say, well, we have to have women in the workplace, but you don't have to have women in the workplace. You can, why are they taking like 87% of like what men make? Like, this is ridiculous. Just pay men what you used to pay them more than you used to pay them, because they're more productive, they're doing more work, they're getting more stuff done with the machines, the technology we have. Or pay them less. I don't care, but just pay them properly. And the woman, they don't need to go to work. But you see, when they pay them poorly, this is just more arguments. It's more justification to have this woke society where the woman sort of dominate all these spaces. They turn all the male spaces into female spaces. And they kind of destroy everything. They destroyed the civilization. They destroyed the country. I mean, just look at the country. Look at what's happened to the country since we gave women the right to vote.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I agree. Do you want me to scroll down and read the rest of this, or would you like to conclude? And then
let's just finish it up. Let's read the rest of it, and we'll take a break, and we'll go on to the next one.
Okay. Where we at? Okay, so I'm down here. The movement comes. All right, so we went over the facts. Owner attachments to their pets. So owners' attachments to their pets have. I want to make sure you guys can see this. Okay, yeah, you guys can see it. Owners' attachment to their pets have also begun affecting hiring and employment. Affecting hiring and employment, according to a report, with 6 in 10 employees leaving a job to seek a pet-friendly workplace. That's complete and total bullshit. I'll tell you that right now. On the other hand, 7 out of 10 employees also said they were willing to take a pay cut in favor of a pet-friendly office. I mean, think about it this way. Allergies among people, like one of the most common indoor allergies that people often have is due to pet dander and smoking. And they eliminated smoking in the workplace, because that was an issue in pre-1990. Smoking was a common cause for people to have missed days at work due to health issues related to secondhand smoke, as well as to sinuses. And now they're going to implement dogs and cats, which is even worse. So you're going to have a lot more absences due to people being sick from pet dander, and that sort of thing. It's just it's Looney Tunes, man. It's fucking clown. It's a clown show. It's a circus. So these results reflect the impact of pet-friendly initiatives in the workers and how employers should start catching up with these needs if they want to succeed. I don't know how the hell we've succeeded for how many thousands of years without fucking pets being in the workplace. I mean, Why is it a big
Let
deal
me
now?
ask you this, Red Pill. As a male and an intelligent person, someone that should be desirable in the job market, that would make companies a lot of money if they hired you, would you be more likely or less likely to work for a business that is a bring your own pet to work 1 day, 2 days, 3 days a week type of business? Or would you be maybe less likely to want to work for that business?
I'd be less likely to want to work there. I mean, I don't want to I don't want to deal fucking dogs barking in the workplace when I'm trying to concentrate on something. It's already annoying to deal with fucking women chatting in the background and catty ass fucking Karens, but now I have to deal with their fucking dogs too.
What about zoo animals? What about zoo animals? We could get them from all over the planet.
I mean, if you could get like monkeys and stuff, you know, those like little monkeys that you can hand stuff to and they can take stuff to, like, you know, to the Xerox machine, or like, you know, like a fetcher, you know, like those, like, you know, those like circuses where you have the monkeys that like take coins and stuff and they put it in the little slot. Like something like that would be probably, it would be beneficial, I think, for the workplace, because it's kind of like it's a bring your pet to work day, and also like they can take files and different things from different departments, so there's still kind of a there's a use for it, there's a productivity use for it, you know. But other than that, I don't
But
know.
what would happen, like hypothetically? Okay, because I can see you're making this. These are some compelling arguments. I mean, you're convincing me. But let's say that we have some woke people that come along, and you've got some robots doing some work, you've got some AI doing some work, so you've got zoo animals from all over the planet doing the works, but then they're like, we need civil rights. Robots are people, AI are people, animals are people, and they're just as much of a person as you, they're just as much of an American as you. So you are bringing in these animals from all over the planet, these monkeys, these whatever these are, these rhinoceroses, whatever sort of animal you can get from all over the planet, and they're doing all this useful stuff. But now you have activists in the judicial system trying to use employment law, trying to use civil rights law, lobbying the Democrat Party, lobbying the Republican Party, who are saying that they're more pro animal rights than the Democrats, which is why I'm a Republican, because I'm a progressive. I'm on the side of the people that are on the right side of history. And it's why I have the LGBTQ toga. It's why I have the clown nose on my face. And that's why I support Donald Trump as the next president of America. But I mean, what about then? I mean, does that change the things? Because maybe then, you know, we're going to have to pay, you know, these monkeys and stuff, we're going to have to pay them $15 an hour in California. I think in some places it's a bit more than that now.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, paying like circus monkeys and paying rhinoceroses and zebras to do work, you know, is that's going to be a very progressive idea in the workplace. So I mean, like, you know, now it's like, you know, instead of having DI and women in the workplace, now we have to worry about robots that have feelings and AI that has its own, you know, conscious thought, and you know, animals too. I mean, we can't, you know, like I mean, it's important that they have their rights too. So I could definitely see this as being a very progressive issue in the next, you know, the next decade, as we have pet
And
friendly
it's
initiatives
it's
in the
it's a
workplace.
conservative issue as well. Don't forget about that, because conservatives now are the new progressives, and they're like a cooler version. They're a more diverse version of the progressives, and that's why
Exactly.
I'm a conservative.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You know, as you know, we saw with the RNC, we saw more diversity than we did in the DNC. You know, we have, like I said, the DNC's appointed leader, that won by popular demand, from the elites that basically count the votes. That, you know, she's not sure if she's Indian or if she's black, so we can't really figure that out. We're not sure. We're just gonna call her. I don't know. Maybe we'll call her a rhinoceros or something. Maybe, I don't know. But like I said, Donald Trump, like I said, he has said in the Republican Party, like that they're the party of the people. So, and I believe that the that you know, Karen Harris also said that they're the party of the people too. So I'm kind of confused there. So I don't know. I guess I vote for both of them. Can we vote for both of them? Is that possible? Like maybe they can do like we can have Trump as the president and then Kamala Harris the vice. No, that wouldn't work either. Maybe Karen as the president and Trump as the co-president, and we'll have Biden as the vice. No, that may not work either. Why don't we just have
Look,
Biden,
we can work out the positions later when they go to have the sex party at the White House. But look, what we need to do is, I mean, I want to see. I think it's time that we have two strong black men again. Because, I mean, what's more conservative in America than, submitting to black men? And that's why I think that it's every conservative's obligation to vote for Kamala Harris, because I think he's a very strong man. But I was just hoping that Obama's gay husband would also run along with him as the sort of the co-leader type position. I don't know if that's still an option. I don't know if that option's been closed off or they've picked that person yet. But I think that this is how you get the conservative vote, because I think a lot of people, they're discounting the Democrats. I think the Democrats are still in the race. I think they could win, but they just need the right people. They just and the right people are gay conservative men, gay conservative black men
100%. I agree.
with traditional gay conservatism as their core values.
Yeah, because there was one gay dude, social media influencer, I believe he's friends with Ben Shapiro. What's his name? It's not Steven Crowder. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't, the taste is there. I know what the name is. Maybe I have to gurgle some like man juice, but I don't know.
Is it Milo Yiannopoulos?
That's his name. That's his fucking name. Yes. Not Steven Crowder, but yeah, that guy. That is the face of the Republican Party. That is who needs to be VP or president, for that matter. Like, seriously, that's the face of the Republican Party. Definitely.
Shall we close this episode up and move on to the next one?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the highlights of the day, like I said, we're just talking about Karens and HR and the wall of doom being metaphoric for the wall that the Karens of HR will eventually face when they hit 40s and 50s, and the wall that they have placed on men in the workplace. And the fact that, boomer men that are cucked have supported this and encouraged this particular type of behavior and derailed society as a whole. But like I said, like and subscribe, guys, if you can. Go ahead and check out our other podcast on the channel if you're new to the show. And links in the description for the Consolidator Legacy channel, which was formerly the what the hell we have it. We called it another thing. I can't remember. Gentlemen's Club. That's right. So go ahead and subscribe to that. We talk about more in-depth things in here, and we get pretty funny sometimes. We got some really clowny shit that we do in that Telegram channel. But also, if you want to rat an e-bike, that's in there too. Link is in that description. Buy some. You sign up for Robinhood, and you get a free stock if you want to buy some crypto. I don't think I'm missing anything, but you could donate, buy me a coffee, or you can send me PayPal, which would help out the podcast and help me get better equipment. I recently was able to afford some stuff. I had to sell some semen and blood, but for the most part, I was able to do it. So yeah, thanks guys for joining us in the podcast. Thank you, Lupiter, for co-hosting. And we're gonna go ahead and take a break, and then we're gonna pop up with episode 24. Woke CEOs. And I don't know if you want to add anything, Lupiter. I'll go ahead and close it out.
See you later, everyone.
Alrighty.